ESPN, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios, here's Josh Hennig.
What a wild NFL championship Sunday it was. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Also, the Eagles finally got around to getting their fresh ideas. I mean, new coordinators in the building this weekend. With all that more this hour, joining us in less than 20 minutes, AP senior NFL writer Rob Maaddi joins me from the Associated Press. We'll get into his thoughts on the NFL weekend of news. Plus, you guys can join the conversation, 609-403-0973. That is the text board. Also, your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. So, we'll get into, I'll do a little bit of a deep dive this hour during the show. By the way, for those you don't remember, when I filled in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on Friday, we went 4-0 on the picks on Friday. We went 6-3 the week before, 4-0 last week. So I hope some of you folks out there have been actually listening and not just hearing what I have to say each week. I'm trying to help you guys out here on 97.3 ESPN. All right. Let's start with the Eagles news first, because I'll be perfectly honest with you guys. I was so mentally exhausted Saturday night. I was at a point Saturday night when I saw the news that the Eagles were going to hire Kellen Moore. I thought it was fake at first. Not because I didn't think Kellen Moore was going to be the guy. I was tired. I was just so we all get to that point. You work so much, you do so much, and then you sit down, you put the TV on, and you're just like, I want to unplug. And then I found out around 10:30, 10:45, whatever time it was, that gotta put the thinking cap back on, because here's Kellen Moore. And it was interesting because I had run into multiple people on Saturday, and one of them being Jason over at Slack Tie Brewing Company over there on Route 9 in Dennis Township. And he came right up to me. Jason did. He's one of the co-owners over there. And he says to me, I'm telling you who I want it to be. I want Kellen Moore. And he gave me his reasons and everything. And at the time, I told him, well, look, I don't mind Kellen Moore, but, he wouldn't be my first choice. Well, it seems like Jason and the people who wanted Kellen Moore, you got your wish. All right? So cheers to you for predicting Kellen Moore about, 6 hours before the news actually dropped. Kellen Moore is a fascinating pick because there's a lot of misconceptions about him out there. First of all, I know he looks like a child in the face, like he's never shaved in his life, but trust me, he is 36 years old. All right. This guy's football background is absolutely fascinating. He had 50 wins. I think he was 50-3 in college at Boise State. And Chris Peterson, the head coach of then the Boise State Broncos, later the Washington Huskies, he runs a variation of the Air Coryell offense. Basically, the philosophy of their offense is use the passing game to take advantage of a defense's weaknesses. And you use, basically the pace of the game to neutralize the other team's strength. Then Moore has 7 seasons as an NFL backup quarterback. And he spent a huge chunk of that time working in offenses that were run by Scott Linehan. And Scott Linehan, for those who don't remember, came from the Mike Martz tree. And Mike Martz, the creator of The Greatest Show on Turf. And Linehan's version of Mike Martz's offense was very heavy on attack. And whatever you had to use to attack, the running game, the passing game, he was coming for you. He was gunning for you. He was pedal to the metal with Scott Linehan, for better or for worse. Then Kellen Moore played for and coached under for a few years Jason Garrett. And Jason Garrett's whole offensive philosophy, and I know people make fun of him a lot, but the philosophy in and of itself is not that horrible. It's interesting. Garrett's philosophy has always been use the vertical passing game to open up opportunities underneath. So, for example, if you get the defense to protect so much for the deep ball, you have more opportunities for the intermediate passing game and the run game. That's Jason Garrett's philosophy. Well, then Kellen Moore has those 2 seasons with, or was it? Yeah, sorry. It was the 3 seasons with Mike McCarthy. And McCarthy's philosophy is much more West Coast offense. Quick hitting, fast paced, quick decision making, don't hold the ball, get the ball into the hands of the playmakers, right? So you're talking about a guy in Kellen Moore who's bringing all of these 4 very different philosophies that all have a little bit of a similarity to each other, all to Philadelphia. Well, if that doesn't fit the criteria of Nick Sirianni, I'm looking for fresh ideas, I don't know what does. Look, Sirianni, and I'll play it again, okay? Last week at his press conference, when he was asked why they got rid of Brian Johnson, this is what the Eagles head coach said.
So it's about coming up with fresh ideas and doing some things different. And that's exactly where we are right now. And Brian being, at that position, unfortunately, he's the one that is leaving at this particular time. But I can't tell you how much I appreciate him as a coach. We've had a lot of success here in the past 3 years, and Brian's contributed a lot to that. But like I said, it's now about bringing in fresh ideas.
Well, if you're looking for fresh ideas, Kellen Moore's full of them. Because he's got not 1, not 2, not 3 or 4 different offenses that he is basically taken information from and created his own offensive philosophy off of. Now, the one concern with Kellen Moore is for the people who love to say you got to run the ball, you might not get your wish. Because Kellen Moore is not a run first kind of guy. Kellen Moore is I don't want to say he's like Andy Reid because that's a very unfair comparison, okay? But he's got a little bit of that use the pass to set up the run kind of guy. So you know that he's not going to run the ball. But what Kellen Moore did was 3 of the 4 years he was in Dallas, they had the top scoring offense in the NFL. So you already knew that this is a guy who is going to find a way to put points on the board. And if you're an Eagles fan, one of the biggest things you were frustrated with last season was the fact that this Eagles team was grossly inconsistent offensively, even though they had the 7th best scoring in the NFL, 25.5 points per game. They scored 3 less points per game. And you go through their schedule and you realize that they were a Jekyll and Hyde team. Look, in week 16 and 17, they scored over 30 points. The previous 3 weeks, they scored a combined 49. Of course, they scored 37 against the Bills, but they only scored 21 in Kansas City. This is a team that was up and down all year offensively. So if nothing else, Kellen Moore is going to get more bang for your buck out of this offense. So at the end of the day, I'm good with Kellen Moore being the OC because unlike Frank Reich and unlike Jim Bob Cooter, who has a fun name, but let's be realistic, unlike those guys, Kellen Moore is bringing fresh ideas, something new to the table. He's going to be, and by the way, he's played with some pretty interesting adults as head coaches. Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy are not the easiest people to work with. I think they're bad people, but they're very much about doing things their way. And Kellen Moore had to work with both of them. And then he had to deal with the idiot Brendan Staley out with the Chargers. And he survived that situation without getting fired. And Kellen Moore was wanted by other teams. Remember, he interviewed with the Cleveland Browns, for example, who yesterday hired Ken Dorsey. Other teams wanted him, but he ends up in Philadelphia. I think that's good news for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense, because now you have a guy who you didn't just hire who's a major upgrade over Brian Johnson, but he wants to be here. That's a big part of the conversation as well. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Steven Ventnor chimes in and says, I'm okay with Kellen Moore. He turned Dak from an average quarterback to above average one. He knows our team. He knows our division. Wouldn't have been my first choice, but I'm okay with it. That's from Steve in Ventnor. Steve, I'm kind of there with you. He's not my first choice either. Look, I was telling people this weekend, my guy was Cliff Kingsbury. I said it Friday. I said it Saturday. And not because I personally love Cliff Kingsbury, but just because of the guys he's worked with, right? It's the Kyler Murray's. He worked with Pat Mahomes. He spent some time with Baker Mayfield. He knows about this type of quarterback. But so does Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore worked with Dak Prescott for years. And as Steve Ventnor, you said, if he was able to make Dak Prescott take that first step, right? Now, you could argue that Dak Prescott might have had a better year this year under Mike McCarthy than he had the previous year under Kellen Moore. Because remember, he led the NFL interceptions in 2022. He went from 15 to 9 interceptions, right? But you go back 2 years earlier in 2021 when he had 37 touchdowns. 2 years earlier, he had 30 touchdowns. So, oh, and by the way, under Kellen Moore, before the final year, 8 interceptions, 11 interceptions, 10 interceptions. So, for the most part, he got the most out of Dak. Now, you could also give him credit for the fact that Dallas in 2022 went 12-5, and Dak only played 12 of those games. Cooper Rush went 4-1 with Kellen Moore as his quarterback, and he had 5 touchdowns in those 5 starts. So if he can do that with the backup quarterback, Cooper Rush, what could he do with Jalen Hurts? And don't forget, this is the same Cowboys team that ran out there guys in the one year the Cowboys offense was bad, like Ben DiNucci and Andy Dalton. Well, guess what? Even with old Andy Dalton, Dalton had 14 touchdowns in those 9 starts. So Steven Ventnor makes a great point. If he can elevate those type of quarterbacks, what could he do with Jalen Hurts? I think it's a positive that Kellen Moore got this job. And I'm glad that the Eagles are getting a real play caller in here instead of a guy whose claim to fame is that he was the quarterback coach for Dak Prescott and that he's known Jalen Hurts since Jalen Hurts was a kid. And his other greatest accomplishment was he was the quarterback of the Utah Utes when they beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl over 10 years ago. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. Josh Hennig here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press will get his thoughts on the Eagles coordinator hires plus interesting football weekend. We'll ask Rob Maaddi, did the Chiefs and 49ers win on Sunday, or did the Lions and Ravens lose the games on Sunday? We'll get that answer coming up next on 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.3 ESPN with Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Super Bowl champion Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman.
When I saw that press conference, I was like, man, this dude, Nick Sirianni, ain't going to make it through the trade deadline next year. That's how bad this thing is setting up to be in Philadelphia. You can't have, just like you can't have 2 quarterbacks. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterback. If you got 2 head coaches, you got no head coach.
Brought to you by the Gallery Bar Book and Games at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
When something happens to your car, you might say, But what you really need to say is something that can actually help.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Just like that, State Farm is there to help you file your claim right on the State Farm mobile app. So just remember, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.
So sticky.
At Hannah's Organic Honey, business may be sweet, but they need an e-commerce queen bee to lead the hive.
Okay, these jars are going to Jakarta. Oh, wait a minute. Does that say Jackson?
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Schedule virtual interviews and talk to candidates right from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers excludes Corvette, excludes prior sales.
It's a new year everywhere, but at Bennett Chevrolet, some things don't change because there's still no beating Bennett. That's right. Bennett Chevy kicks off 2024 just like every other year with the best deals anywhere on new and pre-owned vehicles. You still pay what our GM supplier employees pay, not a penny more. Plus, you keep all the rebates. Unlike many dealers that give you either or, Bennett gives you both. The GM supplier employee price plus all the rebates. And you save even more with Bennett's available 1.9% financing. Looking for used? Get an astounding $8,000 minimum for any old clunker towards any pre-owned in stock. That's at least $8,000 for total junk. So imagine how much Bennett pays for a good trade. And Bennett still offers the best buying experience in the business with a sales team paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Imagine that. Salespeople with your best interest in mind. Together, let's drive at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
A lot of Kanoli's energy started to bounce back.
She has a lot of puppy moments, and she'll be 14 this summer.
What did these dog parents do for their dogs? They switched to Nature's Blend, a premium freeze-dried raw dog food made by Dr. Marty Goldstein, a veterinarian Forbes magazine called the Miracle Worker. It's the easiest way to support your dog's easy digestion, nourished skin, playful energy, and most importantly, their healthy, full life.
I'm so confident your dog will love it. Your order is backed with a 90-day guarantee.
Save up to 54% off Nature's Blend and get a free full-size bag of Tilly's Treasures dog treats. They're best-selling beef liver dog treats while supplies last. Go to drmartypets.com/deal or text DEAL to 511-511. Go to drmartypets.com/deal or shop in over 2,000 stores nationwide. Use the store locator to find the store closest to you. All pets are unique. Your pet's results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply. Studies available upon request.
Meet Cheryl.
Hey.
She's on vacation and lost in the moment. Unfortunately, so is her Chase debit card.
It's got to be somewhere.
Maybe she lost it at salsa night.
These skirts should have pockets.
Or maybe she lost it at Pilates.
3 and 2 and...
But she's not worried. With the Chase mobile app, she can lock her card till it turns up. Tools that help protect. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
She's running around. Her breath doesn't smell. Her digestive system is perfect. It has made such a huge difference.
What did this dog parent do for their dog? She switched to Nature's Blend, a premium freeze-dried raw dog food made by Dr. Marty Goldstein, a veterinarian Forbes magazine called the Miracle Worker. It's the easiest way to support your dog's easy digestion, nourished skin, playful energy, and most importantly, their healthy, full life.
I'm so confident your dog will love it. Your order is backed with a 90-day guarantee.
Save up to 54% off Nature's Blend and get a free full-sized bag of Tilly's Treasures dog treats. They're best-selling beef liver dog treats while supplies last. Go to drmartypets.com/deal or text DEAL to 511-511. Go to drmartypets.com/deal or shop in over 2,000 stores nationwide. Use the store locator to find the store closest to you. All pets are unique. Your pet's results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply. Studies available upon request.
Go to get your game on at the Gallery Bar Booking Games in Ocean Casino Resort this football season. Cheers your favorite drinks while cheering on your favorite team. Get in on the parlay while in the middle of a party. Go for the sports scene and go for the endless screens. Go to the gallery. Go to Ocean. Go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older to wager or consume alcohol. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
We'll get back to tech sport in just a bit, like George's Summers point at 609-403-0973. But right now, joining us as promised, he is from the Associated Press, Rob Maaddi, senior NFL writer and reporter, joining us here on Game Night after a wild NFL weekend. Rob, welcome back in. How you doing today?
What's going on, Josh? We only got one more game to go, man. What a Super Bowl it's going to be. And, yeah, pretty excited. Almost there.
So I want to ask you before we get to the Eagles stuff, because you mentioned about the Super Bowl. And I don't mean this question to be facetious. I genuinely mean this because there was a part of me that walked away from the games yesterday wondering, did I just watch the Chiefs and 49ers punch their ticket to the big game? Or did I watch the Ravens and Lions lose those games?
That's a great question. And I think in both cases, the Ravens had opportunities and just couldn't deliver, couldn't come through. Lamar Jackson turned into playoff Lamar, which was not what he did all season long, especially in big games. This is a guy who really rose to the challenge when you saw them play the 49ers on Christmas night and the Dolphins in a game that was for the number 1 seed, and he threw 5 touchdown passes. We thought he was beyond that narrative of playoff Lamar, can't win the big one, he's going to choke in those games, and then he throws an interception in a triple coverage, or he's got no pocket presence and doesn't see the guy coming from behind. I mean, obviously it was a hard hit, he's going to fumble that ball, but there were so many different things that the Ravens did that were disappointing. And then when you go to the other game, Dan Campbell not passing up the points twice, as Andy Reid once said, we can all count, and we lost by 5. And I think it was in reference to David Akers missing 2 field goals, and Andy never threw anybody under the bus. And he said, we can all count, and those points add up, and those points add up for Dan Campbell. Now, that's who he is. He's aggressive, but beyond those, there was going for it, and then there's the dropped pass when they went for it, which could have changed the whole – it changes the whole story. It changes the whole potential way that game plays out. So I thought it was an impressive comeback by Brock Purdy and the 49ers, but the Lions gave them every opportunity to win that game. That's 2 games in a row that the Niners really – their defense didn't show up in the first half against the Lions at all, and they couldn't stop them on 3rd down. That's not going to bode well for them in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. Then you look at the Chiefs and you see guys making catches for Patrick Mahomes. Josh, where was that all year long? Their guys are making catches for him. Right. I thought Andy had a terrific game plan in that game against Baltimore. So you can certainly look at both of those games and say the number 1 seed in the AFC lost the game more so than the Chiefs won it. And you can certainly look at the NFC game and go, the Lions gave that one away. And I know that Campbell said no regrets about those decisions, but I'm sure he's going to be thinking about it, and it's going to haunt him for a long time. And if he's right, and he said afterwards, he told his players, it's really hard to get back here. You may never be in this position again. He might be right. They may never be in that position again.
Yeah, part of it might be because they might lose Ben Johnson as a coordinator. We don't know how that might impact this team. But to the Lions, before we get back to the Ravens, what is next for them? Because we know they have a ton of free agents this offseason. They might lose their offensive coordinator. There's a lot of questions about, hey, they might win the division again, Rob, but it's not like they don't have competition because the Packers are probably going to get better. And the Vikings, as long as they're not, completely injured next year, they should be competitive. So, I mean, what are the Lions moving forward? Did they blow their number 1 opportunity?
You could certainly say that. And losing Ben Johnson, we know from the Philadelphia Eagles standpoint how much it matters when you lose an offensive coordinator, especially someone as highly regarded as that. Now, they did have a great draft, right, Josh? A lot of young players, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, some others that they brought in that are going to be there. And they do start the offseason with a lot of salary cap space. I believe it's around 60 plus million. So they're a top 5, top 7 team as far as that's concerned. But they have some guys they got to make decisions on. Jonah Jackson, Graham Glasgow, CJ, GJ, who I don't know if they're going to be all that keen on bringing back anyway. So this is a team that is going to also, people are going to be coming in. They're not the hapless Lions anymore. They're going to be the team to beat in the NFC North. And you're right. The Packers certainly played terrific football down the stretch, showed that they can compete with the big boys, and also had a extremely young roster. So I think this is going to be a competitive division. And I don't know at this point right now who I would give it to in 2024, Packers or Lions. And I think the Bears are also on the rise. And the Vikings, if you got Kirk Cousins, if he comes back, and all indication is, he told me a couple of weeks ago that he's going to be ready by OTAs, and I know he wants to be there and they want him there. So it's probably a matter of working things out. I think the NFC North is going to be extremely competitive, and you can't just hand it over to the Lions anymore. So Dan Campbell was probably right. Hey, this is going to be, he knows it's tough to get back to that point. It's tough to be in a position where you are 30 minutes away from the Super Bowl and you're up by 17 points. And to blow that is really disheartening for them. And I think it's going to be, it could be a letdown that carries over. They finished last year on a big momentum from 1-6 to 9-8, knocking the Packers and Aaron Rodgers out of the playoffs. Guys talked about carrying that into the offseason, into the spring and the summer workouts, and how they could step up and be that team that to finally put things together for the city of Detroit, and they win their first, and now off of this letdown, that too can carry over, and it could be kind of a little bit of a fog over that franchise.
Talking to Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, at Rob Maaddi over on the Twitter X platform. Rob, with the Ravens, I don't even know where to start with them, because their defense did their job. They held the Chiefs to 17 points. I feel like there were 3 or 4 throws that Lamar should have never made. I feel like some of the play calling was just, I know that some people have called it that they weren't calling a game for Lamar. They were calling a game for somebody else. Wasn't the whole point of hiring Todd Monken because Greg Roman wasn't able to call the right game for Lamar in the postseason? And where are we again? Another rough offensive game for Lamar in the postseason.
Yeah, rough game for Lamar in the postseason. Rough game for some of the guys on that team, like Zay Flowers, who fumbles at the 1-yard line. Different ball game if that doesn't happen. So there's Nelson Aguilar has one nice catch, and then he drops a 3rd down pass real early in the game. But these are little things that add up, and that can extend the drive. That can change how whether or not you put points up on the board, and it could change field position. So a lot of those little things. I don't know that all of a sudden I'm going to start blaming an offensive coordinator that was getting a ton of kudos throughout the year for what he was able to do with Lamar Jackson and help him become an MVP finalist and help him elevate his game to where he was all pro and really brought the best out of Lamar. And at some point, you also got to point the finger at the players and at the guys. No matter what Todd Monken called, Lamar threw the ball in a triple coverage in the end zone for a pick. Zay Flowers took the ball out and tried to stretch forward at the 1-yard line and fumbled. So they didn't play crisp football. Also, credit to Steve Spagnuolo and that defense, Josh, because Steve Spagnuolo is developing quite a reputation for stepping up. And we saw what he did 10, 12, 13 years ago. When was it? The undefeated Patriots, and he was the DC for the New York Giants then. Like, he shut them down. There have been other games along the way. He had a failed stint as a head coach. He settled in nicely. Some guys are just better as defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators, and he's probably one of those guys. But I thought he had an excellent game plan to combat Lamar Jackson and the great things that the Ravens offense is able to do. Now he's got a lot of talent, but that defense carried the team for much of the season when Patrick Mahomes didn't have many of his weapons playing for him. And of course, Travis Kelce stepped up his game to make sure Taylor gets to figure out how she gets to the Super Bowl after playing in Japan. So it was nice to see Travis have a terrific game in that environment. I didn't see Jason shirtless at all, which I was a little bit disappointed for, but it's going to be a fun next 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks, 1 week before we even get there. This time next week, I'll be at Super Bowl media night, and if it wasn't wild enough, now it's in Vegas, man, and everything's going to be just a little bit crazier and wackier in Vegas.
Oh, yes, it will. I do have a Chiefs question that's not related to Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce, if that's okay.
Yes.
I made the comment to somebody earlier, and I kind of got a yeah, okay kind of answer. So I wanted to ask you, is Patrick Mahomes turning into the Tom Brady of this generation? Because, Tom Brady destroyed the hopes and dreams of so many teams over the years. There were so many guys who might have won championships if that guy Tom Brady wasn't there every single year at the end of the line, ruining their hopes and dreams. Is Patrick Mahomes becoming that boogeyman? Because you look around the sport, it's the only guy who's ever beat him is Joe Burrow and Tom Brady himself. Nobody else has beaten this guy in the postseason.
Twice, right? Brady did it twice. Burrow did it once. Yeah, and I said this last week, for the Chiefs to challenge Brady and the Patriots, they got to win this Super Bowl. And they got there now. They beat the Ravens because if you remember, Brady and the Pats won 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5? I think 3 out of 4. And then they went 10 years.
The first run.
Yeah. And then they went 10 years without winning another one, and then won another 3 in a 4 or 5 year span. So this is a big one. If they're going to really, because it's a big, from 2 to 3, he's not going to get 7. And he probably isn't going to get 6. And it's going to get harder and harder. And you're not going to have Travis Kelce around for much longer.
Well, also, how much longer is Andy Reid going to want to hang around?
That's a great question. I don't know how much you're going to have Andy. And I think he's such a big part of the equation. You put somebody else in there, and Patrick's been he's been effusive in his praise of what Andy Reid's been able to do for him and help him along in his career. So he's got to get this one before I even entertain comparison to Tom Brady. Meanwhile, the other quarterback in Brock Purdy, he's playing in the shadow of Joe Montana, right? So you got Mahomes chasing Brady, and you got Purdy playing in the shadow of Joe Cool, 4 Super Bowls and 4 tries, and even Steve Young. I mean, there's 2 Hall of Fame who won a Super Bowl. There's 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks there in San Fran. So it's going to be challenging. It's going to be fun. That's for sure, and interesting. I'm loving the quarterback matchup. 2 completely different personalities. That's for sure.
And speaking of Brock Purdy, I did want to bring up to you, because you are also the host of Faith on the Field, heard Saturday and Sunday mornings on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, Brock Purdy, first thing out of his mouth, he thanks God. He gives all credit to him, and it was like. It was almost like, I'm not trying to read into anybody doing anything too much, but there was a part of me that was watching how they were holding the microphone near his mouth. Fox was last night. It was almost like they were like, we're not NBC. We're not taking this away from you. You say what you want to say. But it was cool, because for a guy who was the last pick of the draft, and the first words out of his mouth, he's giving somebody else credit. I mean, he gave God credit, he gave his teammates credit, he gave his coaches credit, and everybody else but him. And it really shows you probably the reason why he's successful, because he doesn't think he's, the hot stuff.
Yeah, he's got a great head on his shoulders, excellent makeup, character, really humble. And for a kid that young to be that mature, that wise, it's really impressive to me. I've met him last year while at the game when they lost in the NFC title championship in Philly, and then at the Super Bowl, then ran into him a few more times after that. And he's just I think a great kid who knows where his everything where he comes from. And he understands that to be able to point the glory back to the Lord, it matters to him. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but when he came to the Super Bowl last year, it was about, he was doing interviews to talk about his faith. He wasn't promoting anything. He wasn't selling product. He wasn't selling a brand, but he showed up and he came out the Radio Row and he's doing these interviews. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And that's who he is. Clark Hunt, the Chiefs owner, is another strong man of faith. Even Patrick Mahomes, who Patrick Mahomes gave glory to the Lord. There's some people out there who are like, yeah, but Patrick's out there, he's dropping F-bombs and he's doing this and he's doing that. And I think there's a lesson in that for all of us, because if we're looking at someone else and we're judging them based on what we perceive to be image of perfection, what are we doing? I think we're being hypocritical. So I had this conversation earlier today when we posted on Faith on the Field about Patrick Mahomes, and somebody's like, oh, he's a fraud, he's this or that. That's what you believe. And who am I to judge someone else's heart, right? Who am I to judge someone else's character? I could be saying one thing about somebody and then they completely live a different way. So I think from the standpoint of our faith, I allow anyone to speak freely about it, and God knows their heart, and I'm not going to judge it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Brock get this opportunity, after saying everything he said. Also, the post game, if those didn't see the post game, he went deeper into his thoughts on his faith. But Rob, 2 Eagles questions before I let you go. Eagles, for last time between you and I talked, and now they actually have the 2 coordinators now. First of all, I mean, Rob, you covered the NFL for a long time. I mean, this Vic Fangio thing is like out of a movie. It's like, he wanted to be here, but he had to go to Miami, and now he's coming home. And it's like
the Hallmark movie, maybe a little Hallmark movie.
Yeah, maybe a Lifetime. I don't know. I mean, but it certainly. I mean, he's from the Scranton area, and his last name was Fangio, and he sounds like he belongs.
He grew up an Eagles fan, right? He was a diehard and all that stuff. I think he's going to be able to. This is a guy who's had a proven track record of success, right, in the NFL, and he's got some familiarity with this group of guys. But it's going to come down to the pieces, Josh, in front of him, and it's going to come down to some of those players and how they go about filling some of their holes on defense, at the linebacker position, in the secondary. What are they going to do? They're going to lose some pieces, some veteran help. You would anticipate, right? You can't keep Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham around forever on that defensive line. So I think they're going to have some holes to fill. They're going to have some question marks. And Vic Fangio is a guy, he's 65 years old, and he's been around. He's a veteran, and he's had a ton of success. But at the same time, if you don't have the players, I don't care if you're Buddy Ryan or Bill Belichick or Bill Parcells. Like, you're not going to have success unless you have the players. So I think it starts there, and Howie's got to make sure that you get the right guys in there. But I'm willing to give. I think Vic Fangio is the guy they wanted last year. We know how that played out. That didn't work out. He's here a year later. Interested to see what he's going to do, but I don't think he's going to be able to save the defense or turn them all of a sudden into the 85 Bears unless they bring in some players on that defense, some playmakers on that defense, some game wreckers on that defense. I just don't think they have those guys, and they don't have enough of those guys. They're going to have a lot of question marks, a lot of answers that they got to figure out on that defensive side.
Finally, I want to know your take on Kellen Moore, former Cowboys quarterback, now Eagles offensive coordinator. And, people can make fun of the fact he looks like he's 12 all they want. But this guy, 3 or 4 years in Dallas, he had a top 10 scoring offense. He has gotten the most out of guys. Hey, look at his background. He's got a very unique background, Rob. I mean, Chris Peterson ran their version of the Air Coryell offense at Boise State. He worked with Scott Linehan, who comes from Mike Martz's Rams career, and then Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. And Kellen Moore has said, I've learned a lot from everyone I've worked under. So Nick Sirianni kept saying fresh ideas. Well, I think Kellen Moore embodies that philosophy.
Yeah, I'm more excited about Kellen Moore just because I'm so intrigued by what he brings to the table. I like the fact, well, first, he's young and full of fresh ideas, but I like the fact that he's had a diverse he's had diversity in his experience as far as all of those things that you stated. And he's working with Justin Herbert. He worked with Dak Prescott, had success there with the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy eventually wanted to take over play calling duties. Somebody had to be the fall guy for their lack of postseason success. But I want to see what he's able to do and the ideas that he brings and how much freedom, Josh, he's going to have. Because it seems, based on that news conference, when was it? Wednesday now, last week? We didn't speak after
Wednesday,
that news conference, right? We were on before that. So it seemed to me coming out of that news conference that Nick's going to take a step back from the offense. No longer his offense. It's going to be now if they're going to implement the ideas that worked well under Sirianni and Steichen and Brian Johnson, but he's going to give Kellen Moore the freedom to be able to incorporate what he thinks is best with the players that they have. Now, unlike Vic Fangio, I think Kellen Moore comes in and inherits a ton of talent. You got Jalen Hurts, who 2 years ago, just last year, was fantastic, and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and DeAndre Swift, and depending on what they do there. And now, obviously, Kelsey is moving on, so you got a big hole, a major hole to fill there. But he's got the skill players, Dallas Scott. He's got the skill players to be able to work with. So I'm excited to see what Kellen Moore can do. I was hoping that maybe Eric Bieniemy can get an opportunity just because I saw what he was able to do with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, and I wanted that for Jalen Hurts to have a guy like that. Now, that's fine. They went a different route. You can't be upset with a guy like Kellen Moore being inside the building and seeing what he can do. Now, it's going to come down to how much is he going to be able to really have his say and his influence and his footprint on this offense.
He's Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, senior NFL writer, joining us at Rob Maaddi on the Twitter X platform. Of course, the AP Pro Football Podcast. Like, subscribe, share wherever you get your podcasts, and Faith on the Field. Heard Saturday and Sunday mornings right here on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, great stuff today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You have an awesome week.
You too. Of course, Rob will be over at the Super Bowl all next week covering the big game. And, of course, you can hear the big game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Sunday afternoon is when the coverage begins on your radio and on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. You can download it for free wherever you get your apps. All right, coming up the other side, George from Summers Point, your text and more. 609-403-0973. That's text board. And your DMs into the aforementioned free 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Download it for free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the Sixers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Embiid on the back down against Wembanyama. Powers by him and slams him. He banged into him and then stuck the ball.
It's Sixers Trailblazer tonight. Coverage begins at 10 p.m. It's Sixers basketball all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia 76ers basketball. 97.3 ESPN.
Stop the countdown. Don't let the new year pass you by without upgrading your ride. So bring any trade, no matter the make, mileage, or condition. We'll take it, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, and put you into a new matte black Kia with low, 0 down payments, 0.9% financing, and 0 down payments until April. And only matte black Kia has a 4-day love it or leave it return policy. We know bad things happen to good people. We want to approve you. We finance your future, not your past. Even if you're currently stuck in a loan or lease, we want to get you released and into your new matte black Kia with 0 down, 0 payments until April on every new Kia in stock.
It's gotta be a matte black Kia.
With approved credit, not all qualified credit may affect down payment. Offers can be combined. Go to matteblackkianj.com for complete details. 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes through KMF at $21.22 per thousand for 48 months. Rebates and incentives to dealer expires 2/2/24. Matte black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike. Carver Township, and on Route 37 in Toms River.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate. Not one based on the driver who treats the highway like a racetrack and the shoulder like a passing lane. Why pay a rate based on anyone else? Get one based on you with DriveWise from Allstate.
Not available in Alaska or California, subject to terms and conditions. Rates are determined by several factors, which vary by state. In some states, participation in DriveWise allows Allstate to use your driving data for purposes of rating. While in some states, your rate could increase with high-risk driving. Generally, safer drivers will save with DriveWise. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Get the appliances you need right away at Lowe's. Explore the largest assortment of brands you trust, like Whirlpool, Samsung, and LG, in-store or online at the best values. Plus, take advantage of our everyday financing offers on top items, from refrigerators to laundry pairs. And there's more. Get your new appliances delivered or installed quickly at your convenience. Because Lowe's knows appliances. Lowe's knows home improvement. Subject to credit approval.
Jim Jeffries.
Here's the thing about millennials.
Live on stage.
You're the worst people that have ever lived.
Jim Jeffries. Give them what they want to her.
You have social media, every single peanut thought that ever came into your head. Oh, I'm not going to comment on that.
Friday, July 12th at Ovation Hall in Ocean Casino Resort. Tickets on sale Friday, February 2nd at 10 a.m. at theoceanac.com. Don't miss Jim Jeffries live.
When something happens to your kitchen, you might say,
"This is ludicrous."
but that won't fix your home. That will only get you the rapper, Ludacris.
Having trouble? Don't panic. Don't be alarmed. You need to file a claim? Holla at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's right. You can file a claim on the app or call us.
Thanks, Mr. Chris.
No matter how ludicrous the situation, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
State Farm, Bloomington, Illinois.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language? In as little as 3 weeks, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers excludes Corvette, excludes prior sales.
It's a new year everywhere, but at Bennett Chevrolet, some things don't change because there's still no beating Bennett. That's right, Bennett Chevy kicks off 2024 just like every other year with the best deals anywhere on new and pre-owned vehicles. You still pay what our GM supplier employees pay, not a penny more. Plus, you keep all the rebates. Unlike many dealers that give you either or, Bennett gives you both. The GM supplier employee price plus all the rebates. And you save even more with Bennett's available 1.9% financing. Looking for used? Get an astounding $8,000 minimum for any old clunker towards any pre-owned in stock. That's at least $8,000 for total junk. So imagine how much Bennett pays for a good trade. And Bennett still offers the best buying experience in the business with a sales team paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Imagine that. Salespeople with your best interest in mind. Together, let's drive at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
For your big game party, you better pop in to Total Wine and More for a guaranteed win. We've got thousands of bottles down every aisle, and prices so low they're gonna make you smile. Ask our helpful guides for a recommendation. They add some spirits and wine to your beverage station. Discover something new and let the fun begin. Come on down to Total Wine and More for a guaranteed win.
Drink responsibly, B21.
At Granger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal.
Get a $50 gift card good for use at Provenza Restaurant and Event Center in Ventnor for just $25.
Get this great deal starting Friday at 9 a.m. at SeizeTheDeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to SeizeTheDeal.com.
SeizeTheDeal.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Check in on the text board at 609-403-0973. Don't forget, Sixers are back in action tonight, 10 p.m. They are on their West Coast trip in Portland tonight. Golden State Warriors tomorrow night. Joel Embiid looks like he's not going to play tonight. Also, Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey are both questionable for the game tonight as well. So for all you folks who stay up late, Sixers are on late. Listen to here on 97.3 ESPN, home for Sixers basketball, Flyers hockey, Eagles football, and of course, the NFL playoffs right here on 97.3 ESPN. George Summers Point chimes in at 609-403-0973 on the text board. So, hey, Josh, I agree with what you're saying about Kellen Moore bringing fresh ideas. Interesting part about, however, is his offensive philosophy comes from some of the best offenses of the past, like Air Coryell and The Greatest Show on Turf. It seems, as George Summers Point says, if there are no new ideas under the sun, all contrary to what Nick Sirianni wanted, all he had to do was look into the past for some great offenses that worked for his fresh ideas. George Summers Point, I think it's a reflection of a lot of society. Okay. It's the idea that, a lot of people get stuck in a rut. They get stuck in their ways mentally, and they don't and I don't want to get overly philosophical here, but to answer George Summers' point, his text, a lot of people, we have created a society where people surround us with people who agree with them all the time. You look at social media. Social media is full of nobody follows people that they hate. Nobody follows people that they dislike. They only follow people who say or do things they want to see and hear. So we, as a society, have cultivated an environment that the reason why you need fresh new ideas is because you constantly surround yourself with content and people who feed into what you already believe and think. So, yes, in the most literal sense, George, from Summers' point, Sirianni, if he was just open-minded, would just go and see, well, let me go see what the 49ers and Lions are doing in that game yesterday. Let me take some notes off of what they were doing. But not everyone is as open-minded. And maybe Nick Sirianni, this is his way of saying, look, I have a block. I have a issue that I have having trouble overcoming. So I am not able to do this on my own. I need somebody to come in here and give me something that maybe I can't find on my own somewhere else. It's like when a politician is having trouble and they hire someone from the outside to come in and be a strategist for them. Someone who is not, an outsider to give an outside point of view. It's the same thing with Nick Sirianni. He's bringing in somebody to give an outside point of view. And I think that you're right, George Summers' point. If Nick Sirianni would just look at the past, look at Air Coryell, look at Bill Walsh's West Coast, look at The Greatest Show on Turf under Mike Martz and Dick Vermeil. Yes, you can, in the most literal sense, look at those things, but it doesn't mean that maybe it's a mental block for him. Maybe he did look at those things. He doesn't like what he's looking at. I don't know. Maybe there's some reason for it. Jeff in Ocean City chimes in about Joel Embiid being out of the NBA. And so for those who didn't see, the NBA is investigating why Joel Embiid didn't play on Monday. And according to Ramona Shelburne of ESPN, apparently Embiid had swelling in his knee. And that was the reason why Embiid was basically pulled out. That the Sixers training staff basically didn't like the state of his knee and said, you're not playing. We're not going to have you risk injuring us. Now, with Embiid being rolled out tonight, I'm sure that helps the Sixers' case against the league to say, look, we weren't just trying to get him off of national TV. This wasn't a This wasn't load management. There was a legitimate issue. Okay. I think for the Sixers, there does need to be a conversation between them and the league about maybe they could have a more transparent conversation about Embiid's health issues than they have with the media. Maybe that could solve it. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Catch you tomorrow.
Listen to Greeny with Mike Greenberg on 97.3 ESPN.
I love Jason Kelsey that I saw of him shirtless, hanging out of that skybox, screaming to the heavens, in which you could see his wife in the back. She's enjoying, as everyone else is, his antics at this game. And all I could think to myself is, boy, is his marriage different from mine.
Greeny, weekday mornings from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3
I love Jason
ESPN.
Kelsey. There was one picture that I saw